Hello, everyone, and welcome to the FPL Addicts podcast. I am your host, The Rev, and I'm here with Chris Reed. Welcome to the pod where we are going to review the game week that has gone behind us. Reedy is with us in the studio. Reedy, how are you feeling, mate?
Yeah, mate, completely missed that out, didn't I, with the mute?
Well, I was going to try and be professional and skip over it, but you totally mentioned it now. Otherwise, no one would have noticed. Classic, Reedy.
You know what? I'm gonna redo it. I'm gonna rerun it just because that's how it is. That's how I'm gonna roll. So I know you've already done that, Mikey, but we're gonna go again. We're gonna do it again. So I've got to get it done. Fancy managers, welcome back to another instalment of the FPL Addicts Game Week review. It's Reedy and the Rev here, bringing you all the latest about Fancy Premier League. There we go. I've got it done. I needed to do that just for my own thingy. Peace of mind.
You didn't hear it the first time. Reedy's gone and said it again. So thanks, mate.
Brilliant. What a way to start on a Tuesday, Rev?
Yeah, as if there hasn't already been enough drama this game week. The way we've kicked off this pod already has been full of action for sure.
So if you're new around here, make sure you give our podcast or video some love with a like, rating or review on podcast as well as a subscription. So that would be great. Quick shout out and thanks to Ollie and Ellie for helping out and basically stepping in for me and Rev last week. You boys were class. But over to the blue corner. Rev, are you good, mate?
Yeah, I'm feeling good. I enjoyed my little 30 seconds there of attempting to host the podcast, but it was taken out from under my feet. All my dreams of one day doing that have been slowly blown asunder.
It's nice to know, though, even though you're on the blue side and I'm on the red side, I mean, as you said, it's nice to know you've got me back, mate. Thank you for that.
Yeah, no, I do have you back. And speaking of the red and blue sides and Merseyside, what a game that was, mate. Has your heart rate come down? Because I know mine hasn't.
Yeah, I mean, I've just about sort of got over it because it wasn't the best Liverpool performance again. Didn't look 100% comfortable, albeit, your lads put in a compact and sort of solid defensive game, and it was hard to break down at times. So, yeah, my heart rate is relaxed now. I mean, before the game, I'll admit, I was nervous, getting a bit nervous. But yeah, back to normality now. I'm glad we don't play you every week. I'll say that much. I
mean, I've got to say, I wish we would play like that every week. I think between Michalenko and Tom Davis did a real job on keeping Mo Salah really quiet. I thought they were a real credit to the shirt there. But speaking of good defensive performances, and also particularly for FPL, I think FPL managers across the world would have been looking at that result and going, 0-0, finally, Robertson and Trent are going to give me a return. And Klopp with some football banditry taking off Trent Alexander-Arnold about, was it 55 seconds before the clean sheet threshold?
I think so, yeah. So obviously I know there's a few discussion points we want to go through. That's certainly one of them.
Yeah.
That was not expecting that, especially in that sort of high stake, well, not high stake of a game, so to speak, but one of the legendary games of the Premier League and even previous to that. So TA and Robbo situation for FPL managers, absolute nightmare.
What a nightmare.
Absolute nightmare for people like that. Right. It's almost sort of Pep-like, with that sort of thing. We've seen him do that before, but for Klopp to do it, anyone who's not a Liverpool supporter just probably hates him even more now.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, but Salah blanked as well. Salah blanked as well.
And
that's
there's
another.
been and this has been a point for me that's been blown out of proportion. I think whilst Tom Davis and Mikalenko did try and do a number on him to try and keep him quiet, that didn't stop him from creating a few chances. That didn't even stop him from coming like centimeters away as he hit the post. Also, Jordan Pickford had an absolute worldie of a game, and some of the chat around Mo Salah is, are people gonna move off him now? Are people gonna sell him? Some people, I don't know. Chat, let me know what you guys think, because I am personally bewildered as to the fact that some people are selling Salah right now, when he's basically the GOAT. He is creating chances, and I just think he's been unlucky. So he's not even been unlucky. Like, he's been good. He's had 5 attacking returns in 6 games. You can't really ask for much more than that from an FPL player. But there we are. Reedy, what are your thoughts, mate? What are you going to do with Salah?
I mean, speaking of Salah, he's the second most transferred out player of the game week so far, and so on. Even Trent's on that list, and we all know what kind of happened with Trent Alexander-Arnold in the Bournemouth fixture. So it's a risk. It's always going to be risky with a player like that who's been, in Salah, who's been so prolific, so amazing in getting people returns in FPL, being a perma captain, and so on. So the Salah blank, he was still in the mix. He still got chances. I know he wasn't clinical, or first half he was definitely off it 100%. But for me, a Wolves fixture at home, I just wouldn't be selling him just yet. I think for me, I'd potentially, and as I say, potentially look at it game week 8. And I know we'll touch upon wildcards later, so that could be another thing that we factor in there about having no Salah. But Everton defense, mate, I just want to go on to that and say, as we mentioned about you being compact and solid and so on. Did you like what you saw with that defense?
I've got to say, as an Everton fan, it's been really difficult for me over the past 2 years. I haven't played with essentially no recognised defensive midfielders for about 2 years, and it says a lot about Everton's recruitment when we, replace Idrissa Gana Gueye after 2 years with Idrissa Gana Gueye. And it just shows how Everton's recruitment is. We are basically just a little bit of a shambles in that regard. But as IBK from the FPL Sandwich podcast says, imagine Decore in that midfield with Onana and Gay, and I am really looking forward to seeing that moment and that particular trio in the middle of the park playing together week in, week out.
It beats having Morgan Schneiderlin in there, doesn't it?
Oh my goodness, yeah. We've had some pretty shocking so-called defensive midfielders over the past few years, and there is a small ray of hope for Everton fans. We looked solid defensively. I think Nathan Patterson, what a player, mate.
Really
for
great
4.1 mil as well for your fantasy football teams. Like, my hot tip of the week was to suggest that we as managers should be thinking about moving forward towards a 3-4-3 formation, because there's such a lack of defenders, but there's also an abundance of strikers right now. And if you want 2 enablers that are going to help supplement your bench, then you could do a lot worse than going for Nathan Patterson and what's his name from
Nico Williams?
Yeah, Nico Williams. Yeah. And you could do a lot worse than them. They're both 4.1 million. Just if you're looking to change your team structure around, get those to him and invest the funds where the points are.
Yeah, well said, mate. Well said. And we don't want to hog the limelight too much in terms of Everton and Liverpool in the derby, because there was a lot of other games, and there was some absolute action going on in the Premier League and FPL and so on. So just to finally sort of close this one off, who had the best chances in your opinion, mate, out of the Everton and Liverpool?
It's kind of hard to say without a little bit of bias, but for me it was one of those games that, like, the fact that it ended 0-0 was a joke. It could have been 3-3. you know, with both teams like hitting the woodwork, both teams creating chances. I think you guys were better holding possession, but I think when we did have the ball, what little we did have of it, we looked really good and maybe even more threatening at times. So yeah, it was one of them. It was just end-to-end stuff.
Awesome, mate. Awesome. You know, I'm not going to kind of like be too team bias because of the Neil Mopay one for me was an unbelievable chance. He should have scored that. No two ways about it. The Tom Davies one a bit trickier. Maybe you'll give him the benefit of the doubt, the outside of the foot and so on. But the Neil Mopay one for me was the one that he should have been scoring every other day of the week. So yeah. I mean, Diaz hit the post, obviously, and Nunes had a chance, and there were some great chances. And I just think that the keepers, much of some of the story of the weekend, actually, in terms of the keepers coming out on top and being the guys who are, you know, stepping up to the plate, so to speak. But moving on, to United vs Arsenal on the Sunday, the last kickoff of the weekend. You know, first and foremost, Marcus Rashford.
Yeah.
What do you think of this guy, Rev?
I think he's emerging as a real potential option, isn't he? I don't think he took his goals massively well, but at the same time, he worked hard to get himself into those positions. I think there was someone in Twitter as well who said, you know, for the first assist for Marcus Rashford's goal, there are only 3 players in the Premier League who can play the pass that Marcus Rashford received, and 2 of them play for Man United. So, you know, the first one is obviously KDB can play that pass, that through pass into Marcus Rashford. The other 2 are Eriksen and Fernandes, and they are playing right behind Marcus Rashford. So he's going to get chances. He's going to get chances. He's going to get loads of them. And with Man United's fixtures turning, I think he's a definite option. He just needs to take it well, though. He needs to grow in confidence a little bit more. He still looked like he was recovering from the last season and a half of drought. You know, he kind of had that on his shoulders still.
I think from a finishing perspective, maybe not the cleanest of finishers, but I like the fact that he's getting into them positions, and I like the fact that he looks fit. He doesn't look like he's sort of lacking in pace and so on. But as you said there, in terms of making the passes, and you know, there's not many players that can kind of do that. And the recruitment of Christian Eriksen, and then having Bruno Fernandes already in their ranks, I think it's definitely going to be huge benefit for Man United. And they played the right way against an Arsenal team that were very aggressive, pressed, and so on. And that counter-attack was exactly the right thing to do. For United.
I think Man United just matched them so well with just pure aggression. And the thing for me about Arsenal is they obviously were 100% going into this game, and I look at that team and I see a really young team. I see a team without a lot of experience, and it's going to be a real test now for Arsenal to see how they take their first defeat as a team. You know, they were straight away into the cauldron of Old Trafford, 3-1, and they were battered. To be honest, physically as well. So mentally for them, it's going to be about whether or not they're going to be able to get up from this. And also, Arsenal's fixtures going forward aren't looking amazing. So, you know, I'm going to be keeping an eye on Arsenal assets in my FPL team personally, because, you know, if Gabriel Jesus blanks again, then we've got some great options. You know, I can go to Isaac from Newcastle. I can go to Mitrovic. And reinvest the money somewhere else, you know. And whilst Arsenal's fixtures are turning, it might be just worth stepping off the Arsenal assets anyway.
Yeah, it's a very, very valid point. I mean, they've had it. You know, all fine and dandy with the fixtures at the beginning of the season. You know, they've won those games, which you would have expected them to. You know, they got a bit of a challenge on Sunday against United, who've looked good defensively over the last, since the Liverpool game, realistically speaking. So, you know, that's been huge for them. Man United seem to be hitting some form, and, you know, there's some potential assets to kind of look out for. One we've mentioned, which we'll probably go back to later. But yeah, all in all, really, United fans will be happy with that win, and you know, they're climbing up the table, which pains me to say anyway. I know Jack will be Jack is obviously loving life with that one, so we won't speak anymore about that. That's fine. But yeah, going on to Brentford Leeds. What a game! High scoring game. 5-2. So much
Incredible.
action. Tony hat trick. Let's get it
Mate,
out the way now,
this is just
Mikey.
a time where me and you get to celebrate together. Finally, me and you as Tony owners. But the problem is that I never said on a podcast that I was going to captain Tony. Did I, Reedy?
What did I say on the podcast? Or
no, on a podcast. You were on the FPL sandwich.
Right, okay, yeah.
On
the
you were umming and ahhing about whether you were going to captain Tony. Any regrets there, Reedy? Any regrets?
You know what? No regrets. Just because more relief that I had Haaland captain and he actually played. So having Tony was still fantastic. Yes, I could have got the 17 points extra, but I had Haaland as captain. So that was a bit of comfort, I suppose, on the back of not captain and Ivan Tony, whose goals were just amazing. The free kick, especially for me, was the best goal out of the lot.
That was naughty. I didn't know he could do that, to be honest. I brought him into my team thinking I'm just getting a bog standard number 9, and then he goes and smashes that free kick into the top corner. Get me some more of those juicy FPL points. we love that.
Yeah, I've got to actually give a bit of credit to Elliot, who's also got him in our podcast. So he's in the league as well.
And also a friend of mine there, Eben, in the chat is also a proud Tony owner. And to be fair, as far as FPL goes, it was a really low scoring game week. So if you had Tony, he probably rescued your whole score.
Yeah, the big at the back.
He did for me.
Yeah, that's it. The big at the back certainly didn't do well this week. And it was more about those midfielders and if anything, the strikers are thriving at the minute. So they seem to be where the points are at. Leeds.
Speaking of midfielders, Sinistera looking like he's come in for the injured Rodrigo there, getting his goal. Looked good as well. Yeah. I thought he was looking quite dangerous, looking quite lively. So, if people have still got Rodrigo in their team and they're still looking to ship him on, you could either go to someone like a Marcus Rashford or you could go to Sinistera. I would personally say a player to avoid from the Leeds attack is possibly Harrison. He's obviously had some good games, but he looked really bad in that Brentford game. He looked a little bit lost, and he was hauled off at half time. I wasn't sure if it was an injury or it was purely tactical or it was just a low performance kind of thing from him. But just one of them, because I know some people have been jumping on Harrison. I prefer Aronson myself, the winger from the States. If you're gonna go there instead, but yeah, man.
Yeah, I've never really been a Harrison. I'm not a fan as such, but I know there was some noise there in FPL about bringing him in and so on. But he just didn't. I don't know what it is. Just didn't excite me enough. And I just knew that he wouldn't be able to keep it up consistently. And Leeds. I mean, you're looking for players in FPL. I know that 1 point is being a little bit, what's the word, picky or whatever, with these clean sheets, that the midfielders get the extra 1 point, and Leeds never keep clean sheets, really, apart from the Chelsea game, which was just crazy in itself. But yeah, so Harrison coming off, whether it's an injury issue or whether that's just a tactical ploy by Marsh, who got given his marching orders as well.
Marching orders.
Or we use a pun there, marching orders. But yeah, moving on from those 3 games, just want to touch upon sort of Brighton and Brentford, as we did mention Tony and so on, that for those 2 teams to both score 5 goals, both looking really good at the moment. Do you think they'll continue that sort of form and consistency?
I think the potential is there for Brentford to do it because I like their fixtures. I think Brighton they've got 2 good fixtures in the next 2 games, but then after those next 2 games, over the next 6, if I had a Brighton asset, I would be benching them for 4 of those game weeks. So and then only playing them in 2. Unfortunately, I think it's one of those where sometimes in FPL you miss the boat. I've missed my opportunity personally, I feel anyway, to get on someone like McAllister or Pascal Gross or Trossard because I'm looking at those next 8 game weeks, thinking I'm only going to play them in 4 of those games, just because their fixtures are quite difficult. They're playing a lot of top 6 teams, so unfortunately, you just got to watch that ship sail away from you. Sometimes watch those points head over the horizon and hope for something better will come along your way.
Yeah. So to kind of like to wrap that up, so to speak, is you think that if you've got Brighton assets, you kind of keep hold for these next 2, but it's not a case of bringing any of those assets in from Brighton or Brentford. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Fair enough, bud. But yeah, moving on to kind of a VAR discussion, which I know we're not going to delve too much into, but we kind of want to just briefly talk about that because there was so much noise about VAR over the weekend and the decisions that were made, and it wasn't just 1 or 2 games. There was quite a few games, and Newcastle Palace was one of them.
It's a perfect storm, really, because there's always been questions over VAR, but for everything to happen all at once was just crazy. So, like, for example, and this is one of the reasons why I love FPL, because when something happens in a game that you don't normally care about, you think about one of your friends. and so when the Newcastle Palace game was happening, when I saw that the Palace defender pushed the Newcastle attacker into the Palace goalkeeper, and then the ball ricocheted off that foul into the defender and then scored an own goal. The fact that VAR overturned
just comedy gold, isn't it?
Like I just immediately thought of Elliot. I was like, no, Elliot. I was actually angry for him. I was messaging Elliot straight away going, that's a shambles. I can't believe they've done that to you. I feel like they've hurt my friend,
Yeah.
and that's just one of the things that FPL does to us, isn't it?
Yeah. And I mean, especially any sort of people who own Newcastle players in the team and stuff like that. It's they've been very unfortunate with getting goals and so on, and even decisions, of course. That go back to the Liverpool one. We won't say too much about that, but do you think
I might in a bit?
do you think that in a game where there was 43 shots and both keepers, Nick Pope and Gaeta, were both on form, for there to be no goals is crazy, and for them to kind of rob that away from Newcastle, when I think, in my opinion, I think it should have stood. It's just crazy. But yeah, the Brentford Leeds game, there was also a bit of VAR controversy in that one. Also, in terms of Tony being involved again, do you think that was given rightly, the penalty?
I've seen him given, but it's just it's one of them. Like I think where VAR is just one of those that it shows everything in perfect slow motion, so the referees shouldn't really be getting it wrong, should they? I'm looking at some of these decisions, thinking, how much are these people getting paid? To do this?
It's crazy. I mean, I think it was a penalty. I think it was quite an obvious one. In terms of, I haven't analysed where the referee was on the pitch, but Tony going to take the shot and a player coming in from behind. We see that so many times where players are tackled from behind and automatically it's a free kick, regardless if a player gets a ball or not. So, it was a definite penalty for me, that one. But yeah, Chelsea West Ham. Do you want
give Mendy an Oscar?
Do you want to mention that one?
give that man an Oscar. What an actor.
Yeah,
what an actor. Yeah, it was one of them where I just feel like, Chelsea are really clutching at straws at the moment. Like, they need to start keeping clean sheets soon.
Yeah.
They really, really do. And I wonder at what point is Thomas Tuchel going to lose his rag and just start playing Kepa instead?
It's very, very uncharacteristic, I would say, of Mendy. He's not really a keeper that you'd associate with many mistakes, but the Leeds one earlier in the season, of course, getting caught out there, some of his decision making that he's making. And we were all talking at the beginning of the season of Mendy being a bargain at 5 million as well. And he's not looking great. Neither are Chelsea defenders if you want them clean sheets. Yeah,
although
I mean,
Chilwell was back in the fray in that game. He came on for 20 minutes, goal and an assist.
Exactly that. Yeah,
Straight
exactly
on
that.
my radar. I love Ben Chilwell. I love owning Chelsea wing backs, and I think, you know, if he is back and Fofana has come into the team, and Chilwell, not Chilwell, Kukureya is going to strengthen that left side at centre back, and he's going to move over to there. I think Chelsea could start seeing some clean sheets, but we don't get the Chelsea clean sheets for the defensive returns. We get them for the attacking returns. It's just James has been so hit and miss, but we know that Chilwell is super consistent. And so if he can come in, he can stay fit, nail down that place, I'd love to get him in my team.
I mean, fair play to him for bringing in a bit of unintentional Jogger Benito, you know, the old off his head and spin and then just tap it in calmly as if he's,
beautiful,
you know, been a striker for years. Exactly. It's a thing of beauty. So, yeah, I mean, I think the Chilwell one, I think I'll put him on the list to kind of touch upon assets wise, and we'll discuss maybe as to why you could bring him in. Although Chelsea defenders, most people would say they're maybe an avoid for now. But yeah, so that one Chelsea got away with it big time there. West Ham fans can really feel sort of unlucky and agree. But Aston Villa, Man City, we talk about defenses and top defenses. You know, what's going on with Man City, Rev, at the moment?
I just think they are playing so aggressively in attack, you know, and you know, teams don't create many chances against Man City, but if they do manage to create a chance, it's normally a big one because of how far up the field Man City have been pushing. So, you know, Man City they really desperately need to figure out how to not get hit on that counter, because I do feel like Aston Villa, they took that moment really well. They really punished.
Should it have stood the Coutinho sort of goal,
Yeah,
if you like?
definitely. Of course, it should have stood. I have got no idea why the referee was blowing his whistle. Does that make Coutinho a good FPL asset? No.
No.
You know, I think he's a bit of a shocking FPL asset, but you know what it does say is that gods do bleed. You know, and Man City are vulnerable, and you know they have looked amazing so far this season, but they've had a couple of results where you think, you know, maybe perhaps there is hope for someone to give them a proper challenge this season.
And I think everyone's expecting for Laporte to come back in and solidify that defence and so on. I mean, you look at Liverpool, they've had their normal back three, same with City, normal back three, and just one of those, you know, one player missing kind of thing. But I think that's not an excuse, and I think the Coutinho sort of goal should have stood. Looked absolutely fine to me. You know, he was onside and so on. So, you know, there's a few teams from a VAR perspective that have been shafted, you could say. And finally, the Everton-Liverpool game, we've kind of come full circle from the game weeks that have featured. But I know you want to talk about two things. Was it two in particular?
Yeah. So I think personally that the Connor Cody goal, which I celebrated like an absolute wild, feral human being, it was offside. It was offside, unfortunately. There's been some shocking images of people just going, like, and just placing a line and just like not considering the fact that it's like at an angle or anything like that. And they've gone, oh, look, no, it should have definitely been onside. Like, that is just confirmation bias in full flow. Like, some people definitely only see what they want to see. But, you know, you know, I can admit as an Everton fan that the goal that we scored, it shouldn't have stood. And fortunately for you, it was correctly called off. But one of the things that should have gone to VAR but didn't for me was the VVD challenge on Onana. I think when you go in on a player with your studs up and it lands right at the base of their planted leg and you're both coming together at momentum, it could have been potentially very dangerous. And that tackle could have set Everton back back to where we were before the transfer window with, you know, struggling for midfield options.
It could have went from Onana to oh no, couldn't it? Because you know, you'd have been stuck on that one. But for me, this is, it's always subjective, these things. In terms of slow replays, they always look worse. I think I have to agree with the rule that they do have in place that if it is below sort of the ankle, it's more the foot. I do agree, because otherwise people's toes will be getting stepped on and they'll be giving red cards for them. I understand the studs, and maybe I think the argument is there enough the force in there? And I think Van Dijk's been lucky that the fact that his foot's coming down rather than being more raised towards the the bottom of the shin and so on.
A right angle, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's how he's got lucky. But we've seen it in the past, and we talk about VAR now being so many wrong decisions that could have went that way and it could have been sent off. So you're completely entitled to kind of to feel that way, especially as an Everton fan, mate. But
I'm lucky nothing happened. Because I mean, just for me as an Everton fan to have Onana, who looks amazing, by the way, I think he really won that midfield battle in that game. I think he made Harvey Elliott look even smaller than he actually is, but I think going forward, Everton could have a real player there who's going to give us some defensive solidity, perhaps even give Everton a few good clean sheets going forward. So I can't wait for Everton's fixtures to turn, personally, to get a few of those players into my FPL squad.
Look what a 0-0 does to him. Look what a 0-0 does to me.
Mate, you're starving.
Yeah, so great little sort of VAR discussion there. I think we both, for the majority of the calls, I think we seem to there's probably more agree that they were wrong than they were right. Probably only the Liverpool and the Liverpool-Everton game and Brentford Leeds, we agreed that they were more or less the right call, so to speak. But yeah, sort of a few people that have been in the chat since the beginning of the stream. I know we've got Christopher Barrington. Big hello from the Woodstock One lads. And then Liam says, Rev calling out Tony Bellew, who actually tweeted something,
it was
as you mentioned, about the line with Cody and so on. So, and it's good to see IBK in here as well in the chat. But
yeah, I definitely wouldn't say that to his face. You know what I
mean? That's true. But yeah, so going on from VAR, because as I said, we didn't want to kind of linger too much around that, and maybe assets that impressed that sort of elsewhere. We have gone over the sort of Brighton, United, Brentford, but we'll even throw a couple in there, the likes of Pope from Newcastle and Chilwell. So McAllister, been really good lately.
What a hit! If the net wasn't there, that would still be going into the sky right now.
It certainly would.
Like, I know it's like an old adage, but you know the phrase, like, he'll never hit a cleaner strike in his life.
Yeah, ever.
I've played football like my whole life since I've been about like 14, and I'm about 34 now. And I've never seen anyone hit a ball like that. Not in my whole life.
It was sweet, wasn't it? It was
clean.
Great goal.
So
great
clean.
Goal.
Great technique. And he's on penalties as well, which is one of the big things. Some of these players who we do bring into our FPL teams, like, can be a little bit fixture proof just because they're on penalties. We never know when penalties are going to happen. Personally, I'm not a big fan of Brighton's fixtures, but you could do a lot worse than putting McAllister in your team and just keeping him in there ticking over.
Yeah. I mean, 2 double-digit hauls in the last 2 games there. He got 14 and 10. He's got 11 against West Ham, actually, as well, who Brighton beat 2-0 quite comfortably. Other than that, he got a 0 in 90 minutes against United, and then sort of two pointers. But I mean, the big appeal is he is on penalties, as you say. I think if you've got him, great asset to have going into this game week with Brighton flying and playing Bournemouth, who, if we quickly mention, beat Forest, come back and beat them. And there was a few good goals in there, Dominic Solanke and Billing and so on, 3-2. So fantastic game there. But, never know. Bournemouth could turn it on against Brighton and we get a shock result. But, Brighton is certainly looking good, and McAllister is, as I say, looking good as well. Now, Marcus Rashford, I know you weren't 100% hung up on how wild people went in the FPL community about his 2 goals and his assist and so on, but would you still think that with how United are at the moment, they're looking really promising, getting that good run of games.
Definitely.
Would you think he's still an option of bringing in 6.5 now?
I think he's a good option for sure. I do think, as I said earlier in the podcast, he needs to gain a little bit more confidence. But I do think, having those two players behind him in Bruno and Eriksen, those two players, two of the most creative players in Europe. Never mind the Premier League, and the fact that he's going to be feeding them just means the points are going to come.
Yeah, and you don't think there's any sort of risk in terms of the Premier League anyway, of him being dropped for Cristiano Ronaldo at any points? Or
I think with the addition of Anthony in particular, who, by the way, took his goal incredibly well. I know Jack is going to be watching the podcast as well, and he's going to be loving the fact that we're going to be singing Man United's praises. But, with Anthony looked really, really dangerous. Sancho was getting into some good positions. Marcus Rashford looks like he's turning it around. And so I've definitely got my eye on a few Man United assets.
Yeah, so in terms of the fixtures for United, if you were going to bring them in, I mean, people say they've got a tricky one against Palace because Palace have actually looked quite good defensively this year. Obviously scored 2 goals against City as well. So you could say that United, maybe even might concede. Then after that, it's Leeds, Man City and Everton. Those 3 fixtures there, United capable of scoring against City, do you think? And in particular, Marcus Rashford, if you bring him in?
I think, well, what we've seen is we've seen 2 players in Eriksen and Bruno who can play a real pass in between the lines, and if Man United can get that counter attack right, I think Man City will be vulnerable.
Yeah, fair point. I think with the vulnerability that Man City have shown at the back, I don't see why Rashford, especially the way they play that counter-attacking football, could get in behind. So next one is Ivan Toney. Now, we own him. You brought him in for Kane, which I did question at the time, but I was just annoyed that you copied me.
Genius, mate.
But,
Genius.
It is one of them. So
these are the 200 IQ level plays you can come to expect from the Rev to take out Harry Kane for a Brentford attacker.
yeah. It's bold, but it's certainly paid off for you, buddy.
Yeah.
He's looking really, really good at the minute. Certainly worth 7.2. He's gone up recently. He went up and then he went down, and now they've put him back up. Just goes to show what a hat-trick will do for you in FPL. And, looking at the fixtures, they do start getting a little bit tricky, but there are some good fixtures in there still in the likes of Southampton, Bournemouth. They're the main 2 standout ones. They do have Arsenal, Newcastle, Brighton and Chelsea. But would you say that he's definitely a hold, or even bringing him in is a consideration for FPL managers?
Which player is this, sorry?
Ivan Toney.
Yeah, definitely. I bring him in. Bring him in. Like, if you've not got him, get on him. Why not? He's a player who's in absolutely unbelievable form right now.
Yeah,
and not just in the last game either. Sometimes we see FPL assets get jumped on just because they score a hat-trick. But he's not just been scoring a hat-trick this week. He's been getting a goal pretty much every game so far this season, and his fixtures are great. So
he's only blanked in 2 games out of the 6. 2 games. Other than that, he's had a return, so he's looking really good. Do you want to take the next one, mate? I know it's more to do with, because it's your sort of job and so on. The word Pope sort of comes to mind.
Yeah, man. You got the Rev talking about the Pope change, but yeah, it's
not Volkswagens. We're not going to bring that. That's completely different, and so on.
Oh man, yeah, but obviously the Newcastle goalkeeper. I think for me as like a stat guy, one of the things that I love about Newcastle is that they keep it compact. So what that does is that encourages shots anyway. Like, they just accept the fact that they are going to face shots. But what they do as a team is they try and make the expected goals value of those shots as low as possible.
Yeah.
So Nick Pope is a good player at getting save points anyway. But the fact that Newcastle are encouraging low XG chances in order to win possession back is just a match made in heaven. I think he's one of those players that I'm going to be looking to move forward on. I think, me, are you still on you're not, are you? You're not on a Leicester goalkeeper.
No.
I'm unfortunately still on a Leicester goalkeeper, and I think I've stuck with them this long, so I'm going to stick with them for the time being, just because Leicester's fixtures have turned now.
Yeah.
Their fixtures are really good now, and I'm going to wait like 2 or 3 more weeks, and if there's still nothing from those Leicester goalkeepers, then I'll have to face facts.
Yeah, I
But
think a
yeah.
certain Mr. Harry Kane might have something to say about that in game week 8 against Leicester, though, Mikey. So I know that the fixtures are kind of maybe easing out a little bit in Villa. The next game they've got, Villa haven't looked great, but game week 8 it kind of goes back to that. Are Leicester going to concede a half full against Spurs? But yeah,
well,
they have Forest the week after. So
yeah, over the next 6, they've got Villa, Forest, Bournemouth, Palace, Leeds, and Wolves.
Yeah.
There has to be a clean sheet in there. There has to be. And if
know.
there isn't, I'm gonna cry.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, you're keeping the faith. I
Yeah.
understand in terms of the value of these goalkeepers, they're really, really low. So it gives you maneuvers elsewhere. In your team,
I've held them now through the tough fixtures, and now the fixtures are really good. So there's no point in moving on without seeing what they could possibly do when the fixtures are decent first.
Yeah, that's true. And I mean, in terms of Nick Pope, just to finish on him, highest amount of sort of, I think it's save points. It might be something along them lines. I think it's Pope top for saves, which is crazy in itself, really, considering Newcastle's defense is much improved and so much better this season. But moving on to Chilwell, finally, in terms of an asset, we did talk about Chelsea. We did talk about how they've not looked great. Can they potentially still be options? And they've got a game against Fulham this weekend. Do you think they can keep a clean sheet against Fulham? And the legend that is Alexander Mitrovic.
Oh, man. It's one of them where I think Chelsea are going to concede. Chelsea are going to concede. Like, that's just what they've been doing so far this season. And I think that's going to continue, especially against the striker who is as in form as Mitrovic. But the thing is, I think what we need to do is keep a close eye on something that you're going to mention in a moment, which is the Champions League. But to keep a close eye on the Champions League, see what Chelsea are doing, see if Chilwell gets more than 30 minutes, I'm tempted. To bring him in.
I mean, for a guy that's on 22 points in FPL at the moment,
haven't played one game.
He's literally within basically 2 games. He got a 9 point in the beginning. 64 minutes. He has featured a little bit here and there, but not as much as maybe what people expected, especially with Cucurella coming in and people saying rotation and so on. He's definitely caught people's attention, that's for sure. So I think he's going to quickly become a favourite again in people's teams like last season.
And especially given the fact that Chelsea have some unbelievable fixtures all the way up until game week 18, 19, something like that. They're just a total set and forget.
Great fixtures coming up.
If these players can nail down their place, can stay fit, then absolute no-brainer.
Yeah, fair enough. I think we've covered enough probably in terms of what players, and maybe talked about Brentford and Brighton quite a bit. So we won't go back into them, but we've covered about VAR in this sort of stream. We've covered about the players that have looked amazing, maybe players to jump onto for this game week. Is there anyone sort of in particular that springs to mind, Mikey, that you might think is a differential for this week? And I mean, you can have a look at the fixtures. Anyone that maybe that you think that you could just pick randomly? I'll put you on the spot a little bit there.
A bit of a differential for this week.
Differential, yeah.
I think possibly McAllister is a great shout. If you were looking for like a 1 week punt, because what people could do is they could bring in McAllister for the next 2 games, and then they could dead end into a wild card and then take him out when those fixtures turn. So if you were looking to bring in someone just for 2 weeks and then wild card them out again, I think you could do a lot worse than McAllister.
That's a fair point, in terms of wild card being around the corner for some people from game week 8 as well.
What's a wild card, mate? That's a wild card.
We've used ours in game week 2, so we won't talk about that too much.
Absolutely spaffed ours. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not an option for us basically, but we did that setting our team up for those sort of weeks anyway. So I'm looking good for it.
Yeah, I think we're both still on like 3-4-3s, which is where the meta is heading.
That's where it's
anyway.
heading.
So
exactly that.
You know,
yeah.
so we've kind of got a bit ahead of the curve there. So
yeah. I'm gonna say for a 1 week differential or sort of punt, I do like the look of Sinistera for Leeds. I like what he's proved so far. I think a home fixture against Forest, and I think he's an affordable price as well. That could be the guy to go to. And I think as well as that, Leeds, although they've got United next week, they play Villa the week after. They've got some decent fixtures, so that's that one for me. But a quick mention of the up and coming Champions League. So if you love your fancy like us,
what's that?
What's
Champions League? I'm an Everton fan. What is it?
Oh, sorry,
I don't know what it is, mate.
Yeah, I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to sort of, point that out too much. But yeah, Everton, Europa League, right? With the United? No.
Mate, we almost got relegated last season. What are you smoking, bro?
Yeah. So moving on from that, though, if you do love your fancy like us, then check our UCL fancy football. It's back. First group fixtures start today. If you want to get involved in our free entry league, check out our link tree or our website for details. But keep an eye out on the updates on FPL Addicts socials for game week 7. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the new YouTube channel. Link is in the caption below, just down there. And we'll be back on sort of for the game week 5 preview. So more than likely tomorrow for that one. But I'm looking forward to the Premier League. Well, I'm looking forward to the Champions League. Sorry about that, Mikey. And I'm looking forward to the Premier League as well because it's fully taken off now. So I did say game week 5. Sorry, I've just realised game week 7. I meant. See what I mean? There's so much happening at the moment.
How time flies.
We've gone back. We've gone forth. But game week 7, I meant for the up and coming. But yeah, thanks to everybody for watching and listening, and hope you enjoy the Champions League and looking forward to the Premier League this weekend too. Take care, everyone. Bye for now.